We're on the edge of Boxborough and Harvard, very near 495, and we're looking at a sort of section of floodplain where the it's a sort of more developed area. We're very near 495. You can hear 495 in the background, and starting to look at what is happening to the wetland. There's just over the line in Boxborough, there's a transfer station, so there's some stuff kind of. So we're watching water come out here under the road. Oh, there's got to be something under there, huh? I bet there's something on the other side. Yeah. Uh-huh. All right, now here's the other side. There's definitely a pipe, yeah. Try and stay out of the water. Nervous?
I just don't want to try to forget you.
Just save the iPad. So that was the other side of this.
Yeah, I mean, it could just be like we threw a bunch of stone on the other side and just threw it right over the face of the thing.
Yeah. But it could be the, yeah.
Any of these culverts could be looked at in terms of the beneficial or not to make more of a stream crossing standard thing. We're not seeing as many invasive species in a lot of these areas as in some other towns. And overall, like to me, what's interesting, I wasn't in the breakout room with the folks, but this is, I guess, the third community that we've done this with. See what you see, John, but I'm seeing a town that's in better condition in general.
Yeah, I mean, it's also it's a more rural, less developed. You know, there's obviously everything everywhere in the state at some point was disturbed, but what isn't currently disturbed, I feel like a lot of it has been around for a while.
Yeah.
And pretty stable.
Yeah. Just less invasive species. We've looked at a bunch of culverts. None of them are.
Even just the general condition of them looks good. Like,
yeah.
They're not thrashed, they're not scoured. Yeah.
But even just like half the times you go on, the thing looks like it's going to collapse on itself any moment now, and you wonder, like, oh God, I just drove it. A lot of it is pretty new.
Yeah.
There's a lot of like new PVC and HDP pipes on the ones we looked at. That if you think about,
that I've noticed is every time we bring something up, Chris says we have a committee that's working on that.
Yeah, they seem to have a lot of committee. I mean, they have an elm. I don't know if you were there. They have an elm committee.
Yeah, that's been around since Dutch elm first hit.
I looked them up and kind of quickly looked through their meeting minutes, and it's not like there are some towns that have a lot of committees.
Yes.
And
Marblehead
meet, or they don't do anything, or when they do meet, they talk about nothing. Like that elm committee. Those people are doing stuff. Right. You looked and I just skimmed their minutes. I'm like, wow, like they are.
Yeah.
They're not just like elms are good. They're like, they're in.
So what? This is just a gut response to this process so far. Is that Harvard is socially and ecologically more resilient, and therefore infrastructure also more resilient than than some of the other communities as a baseline, that we've looked at. Like by this at this point in the day, in a couple other towns we've done this, we've had a fairly extensive list of things to do, and there are things to do here, but they're not. I haven't seen as many like burning issues. Like
Right.
holy shit, if they don't do
Yeah,
this,
this is more like
there's
make
gonna be-
make something that's not terrible good,
yeah.
or make something that's good really good.
Yeah. Instead of like in Amesbury, they've got the Powwow River that literally comes right through town. It gets coastal storm
Oh yeah,
surge.
well you have
It
the
gets
yeah.
they're down at the bottom of the watershed, so
Got
they're
no
getting
mill
everything
town.
Everything's coming down.
coming
Right?
flooding through. And it literally is going under these old buildings that have been there since the 18 whatever.
Don't forget
and
the
weren't built
precarious.
for these
Don't forget the
storms.
precariously placed electric substation.
Ha ha!
It's like
Yeah.
up on a like, it's all channelized with old walls and stuff, and built foundations. And there's one of those like old walls that's kind of do its in rivers over here, kind of doing one of those right here, 15, 20 feet up. It's one of the main electric substations for town.
And then they have this
I
decrepit
don't know why. I don't know how that was ever a good idea.
Yeah, when was that ever a good idea? Right.
and there's this site that's
It might have been a mill at one point, right?
Oh, I'm sure that what was there, but why would like NSTAR or whoever else, why would you put a substation there?
Yeah, well, because it probably came from the mill.
and there's a road along the Merrimack River where the Merrimack riverbank is collapsing, and it's like at the edge of the road
The road
already,
is like, ugh!
you know, and another big storm, and man, that road is out. And they've got this asbestos lined pipe that's not used anymore. It's partially collapsed so that it has these broken sections on a metal like support structure in the middle of the Powwow River. And you're like, what were you doing with that way back when?
Yeah.
Like we did the work,
Yeah. So
and they did it, and it worked.
And so like today, at the end of today, I'm like, yeah, there was none of that here.
No, that's what
Yeah.
I
Well-
like. I honestly, I'm out here today, and I'm like, God, I feel like I was kind of pointless. You know, like, they don't.
Well, it'll be interesting to contrast that. I mean, I think Bolton probably has a similar,
Yeah.
although it's not as wealthy as Harvard, so it doesn't have as much activity happening. It's a little less, the question for Bolton is going to be much more about what are the inexpensive approaches we can take. I mean, not that they don't have any money, but what are the inexpensive approaches we can take to enhance the things that are going on?
Right. Or get grant money.
I mean,
or get
think
grant money.
here, the best focus is probably in the little town square that aren't actively used, rather than like you said, rather than just mowing that grass over there. Do something better with that.
Right. It's not.
I think some of the healthy soils things, because there's so much agriculture here,
Yeah.
there's a lot of opportunity that way.
Oh, I would say that just given our experience with the orchards, it's like there's stuff to do there.
Yeah.
I mean, not that we're going to mess with their activity, but there's some things that can happen sort of at the state level that would be really great.
Right.
And then I think another question with this is like, okay, you have good systems. How can you keep them that way?
How do you keep
That's-
them that way?
that's
How do you
what I was
protect them and
thinking,
maintain
too.
them in the long term?
Like what Casey Lee said about this amazing, really old forest. Okay, but now we need to monitor it,
Right.
and nip things in the bud,
Yeah.
so that it becomes it survives into as climate changes. And I think that for me, of the farms, the Schultz farm, I would like to try to go back there and kind of document those profiles a bit more if we have some time, because that, to me, that was an amazing, a very amazing side-by-side illustration of the difference in practices and their effect on soil, because before all that soil carbon burned off that, so it was the same elevation,
I'm sure.
same
Yeah.
parent material, they're 6 feet apart, and strikingly different. So that's pretty clear that it's a difference in how the soils are
Yeah.
treated.
The land. This is sort of one of the land management
The land
It has
management,
has a appreciable effect.
so
Depreciable anyway.
Yeah, yes, a depreciating effect.
So farm stand. But I was thinking, see, we have to do one piece of this that we haven't even started is Harvard wanted us to do an educational piece about wetlands, and so without identifying which farm and all that, we could go and just really document.
Here's an
photograph
example.
the soils here, and then write that up as an illustration of
Yeah.
agricultural practices and the effect on
That's
soil.
That's why I wanted to get a little bit of a shot digging a hole in Bolton Flats. Right. That little spot was that those two holes were pretty illustrative of like, okay,
Yeah.
here's what's going on, and not farmed.
Yeah. And there was a isolated wetland there as well in the center that they weren't farming. They're farming around.
Right.
Right.
Which would
So
be-
we could do another pit
Yeah.
in the wetland of, let's see, I think it had a lot of frag in
Yeah.
it.
yeah,
Well,
but
that'll show something else.
yeah.
That'll show what an invasive species could do.
Right.
You guys dive into frag frag?
No.
Oh, it's an experience.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, it's like, well, when I've done it in some frag patches where it's like 70% root and 30% soil.
Hmm.
Really?
Yeah,
Just
it's
takes-
you're like, oh my god, no wonder you guys are.
Right. Another we can't get rid of you because it's
Yeah.
like just
Yeah, it's really, yeah.
So it kind of gets back to that. Okay, so what's happening there? Does that mean that there's a lot of carbon accumulation that's happening in that
Yeah,
situation?
probably accumulating a lot of carbon. Yeah.
It's similar to the milk oil when he was talking about that and the peat's building up, and we know like you get peat, like that's where peatland is where you keep building that up, and you
Yeah,
end up
yeah,
with like
good.
6 feet of carbon, right?
right.
Right. So that's an interesting thing about frag is terrible for invasive species and habitat, but it's good carbon sequester.
Right. And also carbon and nutrient sequester as well.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So it has, at least it has some value.